Not Like Us. Written by Nick Gregorio and Ben Davidow. Sound design, Wes Dewberry and Nick Gregorio. Fade in on, walk-in freezer moments later. Frank and Dobbs standing over the corpse of Fragger Whitfield. They look at Whitfield, then back to each other.
Jesus, I've been hunting deer since I was 11. I mean, we've gone hunting together.
Dobbs shakes his head.
Nah.
Now is not the time to get squeamish, Gare.
Dobbs pulls a knife from his belt. He hands it to Frank.
How about you do the honors?
Frank shrugs and drives the knife into Fragger Whitfield's chest. Clark, arm crudely bandaged, sits in a booth on the other side of the bar. Sheryl trains the shotgun on him. Paul stands by for moral support.
If this is a zombie outbreak and he's gonna turn, it should happen any minute now.
Sheryl sturdies herself.
I'm not a fucking zombie. My arm is killing me.
Clark, I don't mean nothing by this. Just wait for Dobbs and Frank to get back, and I'm sure we'll let you go. Maybe.
Marcus and LaTesha attend to the unconscious Karen, who's laying in the booth.
I'm sorry this shit, but damn, she hit her in the head hard as fuck.
Blood drips from Marcus's sweatpants.
We were talking to him, and he just snapped. Poor Karen. I think she's okay. I hope she's okay.
Officer Dobbs and Frank re-enter from the kitchen doors.
Yeah, we locked Whitfield in the walk-in freezer, but there was no sign of that other Fragger.
We, also...
Officer Gary, will help?
Dobbs rushes over to the scene. He pushes the barrel of the shotgun down.
What are you two doing? Clark's hurt. I told you to tend to his wounds.
Due to our current circumstances, we thought there was a very real possibility that Clark could turn into a zombie.
Sheryl passes the shotgun to Frank, who shelves it behind the bar.
It's not a zombie thing. Frank and I did it.
An informal autopsy of Corporal Whitfield.
The room stares, shocked. Sheryl is shocked.
We made sure he was dead first.
And that doesn't help.
Frank?
It had to be done.
And what did you find?
Whitfield wasn't human. There were no organs, no bones. Just dense gray meat.
Pod people.
John Plank grabs a bottle of bourbon off the bar. He takes a swig.
You know what I know? None of us are sure who to trust. But y'all can trust me. I'm John Marshall Plank. I got arrested when I was 18 for stealing a tractor and joined the Army to get out of jail. First sergeant, 2 tours, Vietnam War veteran, prison guard. Jesus is my savior. I play mahjong by the pool with the old Jewish ladies in the summer. I like bologna sandwiches with American cheese, thank you very much. I love my Harley and the Buffalo fucking Bills. I'm John Plank. I know who I am. Do you?
The patrons look around the bar, each one eyeing each other.
I'm author of fiction and Professor Paul Jacobs.
It was a rhetorical question, Paul. Jesus.
Frank walks out from behind the bar.
Hold up, John. You know who you are. It sounds like Paul does, too. But we all know each other real fucking well. Shit, some of us our whole fucking lives.
Clark nods. Paul all but pats himself on the back.
I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah, we all know some things about each other.
Yeah, too much.
LaTesha and Marcus look on, then look to each other, then back to this odd white person bonding ritual.
What if we, quizzed each other about our lives?
Professor Paul shoots up.
Just like that scene in The Thing where they test the blood.
I never saw it.
What? That's a good movie.
Yeah, this might work, and then we'll at least have an idea.
Frank turns to the table of strangers.
Hey, you two. Gotta play along, okay?
LaTesha and Marcus nod.
We know each other, but it's...
Since we were little. Oh, we know each other.
Marcus catches himself and nods along in agreement.
All right, everyone's got to pair up. Frank, you got Sheryl. John with Paul, and I don't want to hear shit.
John nods.
Well, it was technically my idea.
Dobbs looks to Clark.
Looks like you and me.
Let's do this shit.
Marcus leans over the table towards LaTesha.
What the fuck?
Just play their game. Because when white people get on the same page like this, who do you think they're gonna gang up on?
Professor Paul gives him a look. Dobbs and Frank clear the tables from the center of the bar.
Let's do this as an open forum, one pair at a time. Sheryl, can you pass around some checks and pens?
She tears a check from the book in her apron on the bar. She grabs some pens.
Come up with a question that the other person should know and write the answer on a piece of paper.
Sheryl passes the paper and pens to John and Paul by the bar. She heads over to Frank and Dobbs in the center of the room. Then Clark standing near the far side booth. LaTesha stands up and takes a pen and paper while Marcus scoots to the edge of the booth. Karen is still unconscious. Everyone is writing. Dobbs walks around the room and collects the scraps of paper. He settles near Clark.
Frank, it's your bar. Your idea. You want to do the honors?
Frank nods.
We'll go first. We're the strangers, right? So we got the most to prove. I know I'm straight, and I know Marcus is.
Yes, and no.
Dobbs raises his eyebrows. He looks to Frank.
Yeah, knock yourself out.
The room is deadly silent. All that can be heard is the whirring of the generator, the flicker of the lights, and the howl of wind outside. Then,
Back in high school, why was I suspended for 2 weeks junior year?
Marcus tries his best to sit up. He takes a deep breath.
Girl, you gonna bring that bullshit up, huh?
Paul looks to John with a half smile. Sheryl starts to laugh.
You got an answer, Fragger?
Watch your mouth. Yes, I got an answer. You were suspended because you beat the shit out of that bitch, Kelly Davis. She been talking all that shit on me.
That's right.
Dobbs opens the fold of paper. He nods. Dobbs holds the paper up. It reads, "Fist fight." The tension breaks from the room. The group is smiling. Some are even laughing.
Okay, Marcus. Your turn.
I'm not gonna take us all the way back to Southern High School, like some people, but who is the bartender at Locust Bar? The one who hooks it up?
LaTesha smiles.
You know I hate Locust Bar.
That's why I find you there 3 times a week.
Stop, fine. Juan. He hooks it up every single time.
LaTesha rolls her eyes.
And...
He bums me cigarettes.
Ew, girl. I thought you didn't smoke. That's a nasty habit.
Marcus, I don't care if you're shot. I'll...
All right, we get it.
Dobbs looks to Frank. Frank nods. He looks to John and Paul, then Sheryl. Nods all around. Dobbs ignores Clark.
Yeah, I think they're all right too, Gare.
Thanks a lot, hillbilly pink mother...
John, Paul, your turn.
Paul readies himself. John raises a finger.
So if I could ask for a change of partner...
Dobbs throws up his hands. Sheryl laughs. Frank screws up his face.
Cut the crap, John. This is serious, and I'm glad that my plan is working. And I look forward to clearing my good name.
Like I was saying, if I could change my partner...
John Plank. I've known you for 15 years. Not all good and not all bad. We've shared a pint. We've shared a shot. There have been holidays.
Christ, Paul, will you get to it? It's not a fucking wedding toast.
LaTesha bursts out laughing. Dobbs shrugs. Clark lights a cigarette. He winces at his bandaged arm.
Fine. How many years has it been since you've seen your son, and where does he currently reside?
John slowly nods his head. He runs his hand through his mustache. The room stares on.
I haven't seen my boy in 23 years. October 30th, 1996, mischief night. And he currently resides in a plot next to his mother at the Mount Sinai Cemetery.
Dobbs checks the paper. He nods.
Not bad, Paul. Christmas 2010. You were tipsy, but, not plowed.
Eyes go wide in the room.
You'd been going on and on about a new book idea. Probably some of that hard fantasy you love so much.
Paul starts to shrink. He's red in the face.
And partway through your long-winded pitch, something happened. What was that one thing, Paul?
Sheryl starts to snicker. Dobbs shakes his head. Clark laughs. Paul, now beet red, swallows hard.
That night it's really fuzzy. I don't remember.
Uh-oh, Gare. We got a fragger.
Yeah, that is definitely an alien freak.
My memory is coming back. Believe I fell ill and I may have thrown up in...
The room erupts.
That's right, Paul. You puked all over that nice part-time waitress. What was her name? You ended up moving to Mechanicsburg.
Dobbs checks the paper.
Oh, yeah, I remember her. What was her name?
I want to say Tina, but that's not it.
Not Sam. Are we talking about Sam?
No, it wasn't Samantha. She started working here a year later.
I'm sorry. Did y'all forget we're dealing with some alien body snatcher or some shit? That's why we're playing this fun little game.
Paul pipes up.
It was Nicole, okay? I puked on Nicole. She worked here part-time and she was in one of my lectures that previous semester, and none of you or my students ever let me hear the end of it.
Yep, Nicole. She moved to Mechanicsburg with that AAA hockey player. Guy was a winger, fast as hell.
Dobbs holds back a smile.
That's enough. You two pass.
Sheryl leans against the bar.
4 down, 4 to go.
That's halftime, folks. I need a drink.
Frank grabs Clark by the wounded arm.
Ow!
Hey, Clark, we're not done here.
Clark pulls away. He grabs a bottle of beer off the counter. Dobbs steps up.
Where next? You ready?
Ready as I'll ever be, Officer Gary.
Clark takes a swig of the beer. Clark spits the beer out.
Yeah, I've been spitting into that bottle all night. You're welcome.
The room erupts.
Fuck this. Let's go.
Okay, let's settle down.
Officer Dobbs hands 2 scraps of paper to Sheryl.
All right, Clark. Now, it's probably like 5th or 6th grade, or I was probably in 5th or 6th. You were a few grades younger.
Clark throws his hands up.
Yeah. Okay, I was in 3rd or 4th grade. God damn, Gary. I've drank a shit ton since then. You want me to remember the 4th grade?
Just hold on. It was summer. Your father was, well, he was away.
He was locked up, Gare. You don't get to sugarcoat this. End of the world and all.
Clark almost sips from the dirty beer bottle again.
That summer, I saved up like $200 from cutting lawns, doing odd jobs and shit, and I was planning to go buy a Game Boy. On the way to Toys R Us, I ran into...
Clark straightens up.
Me and Nikki. You took us to Friendly's. We were real hungry as shit that day, and yeah, you hooked it up.
Yeah. Upside-down ice cream cone sundae and all.
Sheryl checks the paper.
That's right.
Clark drags hard on his cigarette. He smiles. He exhales through his nose.
Officer Gary, model fucking citizen, looking out for the white trash Douglas brothers. All right, here's one for you. Fuck if I remember the year, fuck if I remember the season, but me, you, Nikki, and Tommy were in the city.
Officer Dobbs takes a deep breath. LaTesha leans over to Marcus.
Oh, shit's about to go down.
And we needed a ride home, so...
The room is locked on Officer Dobbs. Dobbs fidgets.
Come on, Gare, I thought we were making a trip down memory lane.
We stole a car.
Sheryl checks the paper. LaTesha and Marcus are wide-eyed. Sheryl nods to Frank. John and Paul cheers a beer.
And then when we got home, you took the car to Ralphie's.
Frank bangs a chair down like a gavel.
Shut up, Clark. I think we've heard enough.
Clark takes a last drag from his smoke. He drops the butt into the dirty beer bottle.
I guess we aced it.
Sheryl walks out from behind the bar.
That leaves us.
Frank nods. The room is silent.
Okay, about 7 years ago, we got an upgrade for the house. It was a big purchase. What was it?
LaTesha rolls her eyes. Clark shakes his head. Sheryl takes a step closer.
That's it. That's your question. People are shot, bit, passed out, dead, monsters, pouring their hearts out, and that's your question.
Frank throws up his hands.
I love you. I don't know. It's the best I got. You think I don't care? I'm scared too. Christ. I just want to make sure we're both who we are because I don't know what I would do if you weren't.
Sheryl softens.
7 years-ish, we added a new deck to the house. I love that deck, and you added it for me, so I could set up outside and paint.
Frank smiles.
Yeah, Dobbs, that's right. That's Sheryl.
Dobbs smiles and nods. The room is relieved. She's a fan favorite.
Of course that's Sheryl.
Okay, Frankie, last one. You ready, Sheryl?
Mm-hmm. Why did I drop out of college to work at Frank's Bar and Grill?
LaTesha and Marcus lean in. Clark, still trying to find a drink, perks up.
You wanted to help me run the joint, that's why. Because you love me.
I do love you, but that is not why. Come on, Frank.
Because I couldn't have done it without you.
Getting warmer, but not quite right.
Frank?
Sheryl steps closer.
Before we freeze to death or get eaten alive, I want to hear you say it out loud. In front of them.
Frank surveys the room.
My father, Big Frank, he, wouldn't give me the bar.
Sheryl gives Frank a look.
He wouldn't give me the bar if you weren't here to run it with me. Your name is on the deed. You co-own the place.
Looks are exchanged around the dimly lit room. Dobbs reads the paper.
Yep.
So this place should be called Frank and Sheryl's.
Mm-hmm.
Sheryl gives Frank a hug. Frank takes a deep exhale. Clark pops up from the bar.
Okay, great, we did it. No one's a fragger, so what the fuck do we do next?
We come up with a plan, together.
There's a commotion down at the end of the bar. John and Paul are having a whispered argument.
I don't mean to be accusatory or judgmental, but these 3 people show up and we have to.
Stop yammering and make your point, Paul, so I can tell you to shut up.
Professor Paul breaks off from John and heads over to Officer Dobbs.
Dobbs, we gotta talk.
Dobbs pulls Paul aside. Clark watches intently. Sheryl and Frank are still enjoying their embrace. LaTesha perks up.
What's going on now?
Officer Dobbs turns to Professor Paul.
My idea worked, and I feel safe with all of you. You being the friends and neighbors that I know and trust.
Okay, but...
Paul leans in. He's whispering.
The strangers. I feel terrible for saying this, but I'm still not convinced.
John Plank leans back on his stool.
Damn it. Paul, leave Dobbs alone.
Clark steps closer to their conversation, and so does LaTesha. Sheryl takes notice.
They seem fine. Marcus is shot, and LaTesha...
But what about the other girl? Karen, I think her name was. She's been unconscious for a while now, and...
Dobbs leans in.
What do you want me to do? Shake her awake?
No, but what if she's a Fragger lying in wait? Okay, I agree that Marcus is probably not one. Judging by how the creatures start to break down and reveal their true selves under pressure, the stress from his wound would have triggered something.
Officer Dobbs raises his eyebrows.
And LaTesha?
Paul looks around the room. Every party is interested.
The jury is still out. I don't think her and Marcus know each other as well as they say they do.
I have to agree. Something ain't right about her.
I thought we were in this together.
We are. I just need a second.
John Plank heads over to the group.
What shit are you stirring up over here?
I'm figuring out what we should do with our unwelcome guests.
Whoa, no one is saying that.
LaTesha marches over to the group.
Excuse me, y'all got something to say?
Marcus shakes his head in the booth. He clutches his leg.
We are just sorting things out.
We don't trust yous.
Well, what the fuck? We played your stupid game and we passed. I have one unconscious friend and another one who's bleeding to death, so please tell me, how are we in a position of power?
Professor Paul shakes his head.
You've endeared yourselves to us.
Oh, and that's a bad thing.
The group spreads apart.
Normally, no, but in the case of an invasion, yeah.
A couple of real monsters. That girl was so terrified she cracked her head open.
Enough. We need to put together a plan.
Sheryl walks away from the group. She's not entertaining any more bullshit. Frank hangs back.
These 3 people show up in my bar and all hell breaks loose. That's all I know.
Sheryl shoots Frank daggers. LaTesha is hurt. Marcus drops his head in his hands.
No, Cheryl's right. We can't get distracted. We have to...
I don't know. These strangers have been at the center of every terrible thing that has happened here tonight.
Stop calling us the strangers like we're some British rock band or some shit.
Professor Paul paces to the center of the room.
Paul, leave it.
Clark lights a smoke.
Nah, I'm with him.
LaTesha turns to Marcus, then back to Dobbs.
You have to do something.
Don't worry, nothing will happen to you. Paul, stop it.
Officer Gary, are you protecting them? Because that's great. You lock up your friends, you risk your life for monsters.
What the hell is happening?
Think about it, Dobbs. They show up, fight with Clark, the gunshot.
Not my gun.
LaTesha is wide-eyed and panicked.
Then LaTesha and Karen were there when Whitfield turned.
John Plank scoffs.
You're no Columbo. These people are scared. They need our help.
Paul, I'm about 2 seconds away from throwing you out.
Sheryl, we don't know these people.
Christ, Frank!
Dobbs steps in front of LaTesha.
Paul, none of us expected any of this would happen. I know you're a writer and the circumstances...
Clark points at LaTesha with his cigarette.
I say we throw them out. Black girl, black guy, and passed out bitch, hit the road.
Clark takes a step towards LaTesha. Officer Dobbs unclips his firearm. He keeps his hand at his waist. Clark steps back.
Clark, don't do this.
Wow. You're gonna shoot me, Gary? You're gonna protect some dumb bitch you barely know?
Yo, fuck you.
Officer, please shoot that racist clown.
John Plank gives Paul a look.
This is ridiculous, Paul. What the hell are you thinking?
Paul, slack-jawed, looks around the room.
Or maybe I'm way off base.
Fragger Karen pops up from the booth, eyes blood red and foaming at the mouth. She charges at Professor Paul. The room reacts, but not fast enough. Fragger Karen claws at Paul's neck and throat. He struggles to get her off of him. She tears at his jugular. John Plank reaches down and pulls up his pant leg. John comes up with a 2-shooter from an ankle holster. John levels the gun at Fragger Karen's back. Paul is bleeding from his neck. Fragger Karen is dragging him down by torn flesh. Dobbs spins around. Before the other patrons can do anything, bang! John Plank shoots Fragger Karen in the back of the head. Blood and gore spray onto Professor Paul's face. Paul falls backward onto the floor with a thud. Officer Dobbs pulls his gun. Fragger Karen whips around. She has a giant gaping gunshot exit wound through her face. Bang! John Plank fires his last shot. It tears through what's left of Fragger Karen's head. She drops to the ground. Dobbs stands there with his gun drawn. LaTesha is in stunned shock. Marcus is repeatedly shaking his head. Sheryl has her hands to her face. Frank rushes over to Professor Paul.
But maybe I was right.
Frank puts pressure on Paul's neck with a bar towel. Sheryl comes from behind the bar with an armful of towels. Dobbs, gun still drawn, motions for LaTesha to go back to her booth.
Dobbs, we didn't know.
Go sit in the booth!
LaTesha backs up into the booth.
They're gonna kill us.
Clark motions towards Professor Paul. Dobbs trains his gun on him. Clark throws up his hands.
I just want to check on Paul.
Sit down in that booth over there, Clark.
Dobbs points to the empty booth with his gun. Clark sits. John Plank still has his gun leveled, frozen. Finally, he lowers his arm. He turns to the bar. John pours himself a shot, barely any liquor left.
Paul! Paul!
The towels are soaked through with blood. Paul's eyes are vacant.
Oh, Christ, Paul, come on.
Officer Dobbs walks over. He pushes Fragger Karen over with his foot, dead. Dobbs looks over to Paul's lifeless body. Sheryl and Frank have given up. John Plank brushes by Dobbs. He looks down at his slain comrade. He looks away, teary-eyed. John Plank walks to the coat rack and grabs his large, heavy coat. He calmly puts on his gloves, scarf, hat, and coat as he talks.
Let me tell you something. Y'all are worried about the who's, what's, and the whys, but not one of us is getting out of this one. I know that for a fact.
Officer Dobbs still has his gun in hand. Sheryl and Frank kneel by Paul's corpse. LaTesha and Marcus are planted, and so is Clark.
John, stop, please. I know how much you love Paul, but we need you. We have to stay together.
You're gonna have to shoot me, Gary, and I don't think you're gonna do that.
John drags the table and chairs out from in front of the door.
Not much of a barricade we made here. Just saying. I'm an old man. I got right through it.
Frank gives a little smile.
All right, then. I'm going out there. Time to catch up with the wife and kid. Peace, love. Be good. Tip your waitresses. Goodbye, Sheryl.
Sheryl runs to John and hugs him tight.
Bye, John.
John pries Sheryl off of him. John waves goodbye to everyone. The patrons look on in stunned, bloody silence. Through the tiny diamond-shaped window, you can see John Plank disappearing into the infinite white.